Admiral Una Park stood at the observation window of Nova Station and watched the stars. She had traveled far from Earth to reach this place. 300 light-years separated her from home, from everything she loved. But she was here for a reason. She was here to secure humanity's future. Behind her, Captain Tae Kwan reviewed the security reports on his tablet. His face showed nothing, but Una knew him well enough to see the tension in his shoulders. They both knew this mission was dangerous. The alien species of the Galactic Concord had never treated humanity as equals. For 80 years, humans had been provisional members of the Concord. They could watch. They could listen. But they could not vote. They could not decide their own fate. Today, that would change. Or so Una hoped. The doors behind her opened with a soft hiss. Commander Minho Beak entered, his hand resting near his sidearm out of habit. He was a careful man, always watching, always ready. Una appreciated that about him. "The Concord delegates are ready," Minho said. "Elder Voss is already seated in the main chamber." Una turned from the window. She smoothed her uniform and took a deep breath. "Then let us not keep them waiting." The walk to the main chamber felt longer than it should have. Nova Station was neutral ground, built specifically for diplomatic meetings between species. Its halls were wide and empty, designed to make no single species feel at home. The walls were gray. The air was cold. Everything about this place said the same thing: business only. When Una entered the chamber, 12 alien delegates turned to look at her. They sat in a half-circle around a raised platform where she would stand. Their eyes, some with pupils and some without, followed her every step. She felt like prey walking into a den of predators. Elder Voss sat at the center. He was Terrellian, the oldest and most powerful species in the Concord. His skin was pale blue, almost gray, and his eyes were solid black. He had lived for over 2,000 years. To him, humanity was barely more than children playing at civilization. "Admiral Park," Voss said. His voice was smooth and cold. "You honor us with your presence." Una bowed slightly. "Elder Voss, thank you for agreeing to these talks." She took her place on the platform and felt the weight of every gaze in the room. Tae and Minho stood behind her, silent and watchful. She was alone up here, representing 8 billion humans on Earth and another 4 billion across the colonies. Their hopes rested on her shoulders. "I will be direct," Una began. "Humanity has been a provisional member of this Concord for 80 years. We have followed your laws. We have respected your boundaries. We have contributed to your economy and your science. We have done everything you asked of us." She paused, letting her words settle. "We are no longer asking for full membership. We are requesting it as our right. Equal representation. Equal voice. Equal standing among the stars." The chamber was silent. Then Elder Voss smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You speak well, Admiral. Your species always does. You are passionate creatures. Quick to feel, quick to act." He leaned forward in his seat. "But passion is not wisdom. Speed is not strength. Humanity is young. Too young to understand the burden of true power. With respect, Elder, our age does not diminish our contributions." "No," Voss agreed. "But it does explain your ... nature." He waved one long-fingered hand dismissively. "You breed quickly. You spread quickly. You consume resources at an alarming rate. In the 2 centuries since you discovered space travel, your population has tripled. Your colonies have multiplied like bacteria in a wound." Una felt her jaw tighten, but kept her voice calm. "Growth is not a crime. It is when it threatens the balance of the galaxy." Voss stood, and his full height was impressive. He towered over Una by a full meter. "The Concord has discussed humanity's petition at great length. We have reached a decision." A cold feeling spread through Una's chest. Something was wrong. This was not how negotiations worked. They had only just begun. "We will grant humanity a path to full membership," Voss continued. "Under certain conditions, Una waited. First, humanity will surrender 60% of its military fleet to Concord oversight. Second, All human colonies will be relocated to approved settlement zones where your expansion can be properly managed. Third, Earth will accept population controls to bring your numbers to sustainable levels. The words hit Yuna like physical blows. Surrender their fleet, give up their colonies, control their population. These were not conditions for membership. These were terms of surrender. Cannot be serious, she said. We are entirely serious, Admiral. Voss's black eyes showed no emotion. Humanity has proven itself too aggressive, too unpredictable, and too fast-growing to be trusted with full autonomy. You are a threat to galactic stability. These conditions are not negotiable. Yuna's mind raced. She looked at Tay, who gave her a small nod. He understood. This had always been a trap. And if we refuse... Voss smiled again. Then I must inform you that Concord warships have already taken positions around Earth in all human colony worlds. You have 1 solar cycle to accept our terms. After that, he spread his hands. We will be forced to ensure galactic peace through other means. The threat was clear. Accept slavery or face extinction. Yuna stood very still. Every instinct screamed at her to rage, to fight, to do something. But she was a diplomat, and more than that, she was human. Her species had faced impossible odds before. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that nearly ended them. They had always found a way. She turned toward the door, her delegation falling in behind her. Armed Concord guards moved to escort them out. At the threshold, Yuna stopped. She looked back at Elder Voss, who watched her with those cold, dead eyes. You have made a mistake, she said quietly. Voss tilted his head. Oh, and what mistake is that? Yuna's voice was ice. You should have studied our history more carefully. You see our kindness and think us weak. You see our patience and think us passive. You see our desire for peace and think we have forgotten war. She held his gaze without blinking. We have not forgotten. We simply chose to be better. You have just given us permission to remember what we are. She turned and walked away. Behind her, Elder Voss laughed softly. Children, he said to his fellow delegates, always so dramatic. In 1 solar cycle, they will kneel. But somewhere deep in his ancient mind, in a place he had not visited in centuries, something stirred. It felt almost like fear. He ignored it. That was his second mistake. The message from Admiral Yuna reached Earth in 6 hours. It traveled through relay stations scattered across human space, each one boosting the signal until it arrived at Luna Command. There, President Somi Han watched the recording in silence. When it finished, she watched it again. Then she called an emergency session of the United Parliament. The great chamber filled within the hour. Representatives from every nation on Earth, every colony in human space gathered in person or by hologram. The room buzzed with voices, with fear, with anger. Everyone had heard rumors. Now they would learn the truth. Somi walked to the central podium. She was not a tall woman, but something about her presence made everyone fall silent. She had been a war historian before entering politics. She had spent her life studying how civilizations fell and how they survived. She had hoped that knowledge would never be needed. She was wrong. 3 days ago, our delegation arrived at Nova Station seeking peace. Somi began. We offered friendship. We offered cooperation. We asked only to be treated as equals. The Galactic Concord responded with an ultimatum. Surrender our military. Give up our colonies. Accept controls on our population, or face destruction. The chamber erupted. Voices shouted over each other. Some called for immediate surrender. Others demanded war. A few simply sat in stunned silence. Somi raised her hand, and slowly the noise faded. We have less than 20 hours to respond. Concord warships surround our worlds. They believe we will fracture. They believe we will turn on each other as their own species have done throughout history. Her voice hardened. They are wrong. She looked across the chamber, meeting the eyes of presidents and prime ministers, generals and scientists, young politicians and old warriors. I am not asking you to vote on war or peace. I am asking you one simple question. Are we still human? For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then, one by one, hands rose. Not in surrender. Not in defeat. In unity, the vote was unanimous. Deep beneath the surface of the moon, General Heon-cho watched the parliament's decision on a small screen. He was 87 years old, his hair white, and his face lined with age. But his eyes were sharp. They had always been sharp. It is time, he said around him. Officers who had trained their entire lives for this moment began entering codes into secure terminals. Across human space, things began to wake up. Dr. Jisoo Lim arrived at the command center within minutes. She was younger than the general by decades, but in her field she was a legend. She had led Project Prometheus for 15 years. Today, the galaxy would finally see what she had built. The systems are ready, she said. All 247 of them. General Heon nodded slowly. Show me. Jisoo activated the main display. A map of human space appeared, showing Earth, Luna, Mars, and the dozen colony worlds scattered across nearby systems. Small blue dots represented the human fleet that the Concorde knew, about 300 ships, most of them old and outdated. Then Jisoo pressed a button. New dots appeared. Thousands of them. Hidden shipyards and asteroid fields. Secret bases in the dark spaces between stars. Ships that had been built in silence, crewed by volunteers who had sworn to tell no one. An entire war machine hidden in plain sight for over 40 years. General Heon stared at the display. The Concorde shared their technology with us decades ago. They gave us their outdated weapons, their old engines, their obsolete designs. They thought we were too primitive to improve upon them. They were wrong, Jisoo said with a small smile. We did not just improve their technology. We made something new. Something better. Something they have never seen. Across human space, the hidden fleet powered up. Ships that had waited in darkness for decades came alive. Their crews, many of them second or third generation, took their stations. They had trained for this moment since childhood. Their parents had built these ships. Their grandparents had designed them. Whole families had kept the secret, passing it down like a sacred trust. On Earth. In a small apartment in Seoul, Lieutenant Nario received her orders. She was 24 years old and had never seen war. Her generation had grown up in peace. They had studied the old conflicts in school, the world wars, the resource wars, the terrible century before humanity found the stars, but those were just history. Just stories. Now the stories were becoming real. She kissed her mother goodbye and reported to her ship. Around her, millions of other young soldiers did the same. They came from farms and cities, from mountains and shores. They spoke 100 languages and followed 1,000 different faiths. But when they put on the uniform, they were all the same. They were human. President Somi stood in a small recording studio deep within the presidential complex. The room was simple, just a camera, a light, and a plain background. No flags, no symbols, no display of power. Just her? Are we ready? She asked. The technician nodded. This will broadcast across all galactic frequencies simultaneously. Every species in the Concorde will receive it at the same time. Somi took a breath. She thought about her daughter, safe on Mars. She thought about her father, who had died in the food riots 60 years ago. She thought about all the humans who had lived and died, fought and loved, built and destroyed throughout the long ages of their history. Then she nodded. Begin recording. The light turned red. Somi looked directly into the camera. My name is Somi Han. I speak for the people of Earth and all her children among the stars. This message is for every being in the galaxy who believes humanity will kneel. She paused. You are about to learn how wrong you are. Far away, in the cold depths of space, Concorde warships waited around human worlds. Their commanders were patient. They had done this before with other young species. Some had surrendered quickly. Others had fought briefly before accepting the inevitable. All had been absorbed into the Concorde. One way or another, humanity would be no different, or so they believed. In exactly 18 hours, they would receive President Salmi's full message. In exactly 18 hours and 4 minutes, they would understand the terrible mistake they had made. But for now, they waited in the dark, confident in their power. Certain of their victory, they could not hear the rumble of engines deep in the asteroid fields. They could not see the ships rising from hidden bases. They could not feel the pulse of a species. Preparing for war, they did not know that humanity had been ready. For this moment, since the day they first looked up at the stars and wondered who else was out there, they did not know that the most dangerous thing in the galaxy was not weapons or ships or technology. It was a species that had learned to bury its demons rather than destroy them. And those demons were about to wake up. The broadcast began at exactly midnight, Earth Standard Time. It hit every communication relay in the galaxy simultaneously. On 1,000 worlds, screens flickered to life. In command centers and living rooms, in warships and space stations, beings of every species stopped what they were doing to watch. President Somi Han appeared on the screen. She stood alone in a simple room. No soldiers surrounded her. No weapons gleamed in the background. She wore a plain black suit and looked directly into the camera as if she could see through it to every viewer in the galaxy. Elder Voss watched from his flagship above Earth. He had expected threats. He had expected rage. He had expected the desperate posturing of a doomed species trying to look brave. Instead, Somi spoke calmly. To the beings of the Galactic Concord, she began. You have demanded our surrender. You have threatened our destruction. You believe you know what humanity is. Today I will show you. The screen changed. Images appeared, old images from Earth's history. Sami's voice continued over them. This is what we are. The first image showed a ruined city. Buildings collapsed into rubble. Bodies in the streets. This is Hiroshima. In a single moment, we killed 100,000 of our own kind. Not aliens. Not enemies from distant stars. Our own brothers and sisters. More images followed. Mass graves. Burning villages. Children with hollow eyes. This is the Holocaust. We murdered 6 million people because they prayed to a different god. This is Rwanda. We killed 800,000 in 100 days using simple tools, machetes, clubs, bare hands. On worlds across the galaxy, viewers watched in confused silence. They had expected a declaration of war. Instead, humanity's leader was showing them her species' greatest shames. This is our history, Somi continued. We have committed atrocities that would make your worst nightmares seem gentle. We have tortured and enslaved and murdered on scales that you cannot imagine. There is no evil in the galaxy that humanity has not already done to itself. Elder Voss frowned. What was this? A confession. An admission of weakness. Then Sami's tone changed. And yet, she said, we are still here. The images shifted. Now they showed something different. People helping each other from wreckage. Doctors treating wounded enemies. Hands reaching across borders that had been drawn in blood. After every war, we rebuilt. After every genocide, we remembered not to repeat our crimes, but to understand them. We created laws to bind ourselves. We built institutions to hold ourselves accountable. We did not become peaceful because we forgot violence. We became peaceful because we remembered it too well. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was harder. You look at humanity and see a young, passionate, aggressive species. You are right. But you misunderstand what you see. We are not aggressive because we are primitive. We are aggressive because we evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We fought ice ages. We fought plagues. We fought each other. And we won. Again and again and again. On the Ethon homeworld, Delegate Nira watched with growing horror. She had warned the Concord that humanity was different. No one had listened. Your species evolved in safety, Somi continued. You developed over millions of years on gentle worlds with stable climates. You had time to become civilized slowly, peacefully. We did not. We became civilized in spite of our world trying to end us. Every generation of humans has survived extinction. It is not a memory for us. It is an instinct. The screen changed again. Now it showed Earth from space, blue and beautiful, wrapped in clouds. You surrounded our worlds with your warships. You believed this would frighten us into submission. Somi shook her head slowly. You still do not understand. Around Earth, space began to shimmer. From asteroid fields and hidden stations, from dark moons and camouflaged positions, ships appeared. Thousands of them. The hidden fleet emerged from its 40-year sleep like a beast waking from hibernation. In his command center, Elder Voss stood frozen. His tactical displays lit up with warnings. Contact after contact appeared where moments before there had been nothing. For 40 years, you watched our entire fleet, Somi said. 300 ships. Old designs, obsolete weapons. You felt safe. You felt superior? Her voice dropped to something almost like a whisper. You were seeing less than 10% of what we built. The human armada continued to emerge. Battleships the size of small moons. Fighters swarming in formations so dense they looked like clouds. Weapons platforms that the Concorde's sensors could not identify because the technology was unknown. We took the gifts you gave us, Somi said. Your old technology. Your obsolete systems. And we made them better. Not by a little. Not by a lot. By orders of magnitude. You gave us the tools of the last millennium. We built the weapons of the next. Elder Voss's hands trembled. The Concorde had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had absorbed or destroyed every threat that arose. They had become so confident in their power that they had forgotten what fear felt like. They were remembering now. President Somi's face returned to the screen. Her expression was calm, but her eyes burned. We sought peace because we know what we are capable of. We offered friendship because we hope to become more than our nature. You have rejected both. She straightened her shoulders. So be it. The words came like hammer blows. This is humanity's declaration to the Galactic Concorde. You have chosen war. You will have it. But understand this. We will not conquer your worlds. We will not enslave your people. We will simply remind the galaxy why Earth's children learned to fear the dark. She leaned forward slightly. It was not the unknown that frightened our ancestors. It was not monsters or aliens or things from beyond the stars. What they feared was themselves. What they feared was what humans became when they had no reason to hold back. The broadcast began to fade, but Sami's final words echoed across the galaxy. You thought we were soft because we chose peace? You thought we were weak because we showed mercy? You were wrong. We buried our demons not because we destroyed them, but because we learned to control them. You have given us permission to let them out. The screen went black. Then, slowly, an image appeared. Earth surrounded by its hidden armada. Thousands of ships arranged in formations that spoke of careful planning and absolute confidence. Below the image, for words in every language known to the galaxy, we remember how to be human. Across the galaxy, silence fell. On Concorde warships, soldiers looked at each other with wide eyes. On alien homeworlds, civilians who had watched the broadcast turned off their screens with shaking hands. In council chambers and command centers, leaders realized that everything they believed about humanity was wrong. Delegate Nira stood alone on her balcony, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, a species that had been laughed at, dismissed, and threatened had just declared war on the oldest powers in the galaxy, and they had done it not with rage or desperation, but with calm, terrible certainty. That was the most frightening thing of all. Elder Voss sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display. The human fleet outnumbered his own by a factor of 3. Their technology was unknown. Their tactics were unpredictable. And their leader had just admitted that her species was capable of monstrosities beyond imagination, while somehow making that sound like a threat instead of a weakness. He had lived for 2,000 years. He had never been truly afraid. He was afraid now. The war had begun. The Valorian Front had stood for 8,000 years. It was the heart of the Concorde's military power, a massive complex of space stations. shipyards, and defense platforms floating in the void between two dead stars. 300 warships patrolled its borders at all times. No enemy had ever breached its walls. Grand Marshal Keth commanded from the central station. He was Valorian, born to a species that had perfected warfare over 10,000 years. His people had conquered 100 worlds before joining the Concord. They were the sword arm of galactic civilization. When he heard that the humans had declared war, he laughed. When he saw their hidden fleet, he stopped laughing, but he remained confident. The Valorian front was impenetrable. The humans would defend their colonies and wait for the Concord to come to them. That was what rational species did when outnumbered by an ancient enemy. They dug in and hoped for mercy. He was wrong. 1 week after President Sami's broadcast, Admiral Una Park stood on the bridge of the battleship Horizon. Around her, the first human expeditionary fleet 100 ships cut through space at speeds the Concord believed impossible. Admiral Captain Tay Kwan reported from his station. "We will reach the Valorian front in 4 hours." Una nodded. She studied the tactical display, memorizing every detail of the enemy position. The Concord had 300 ships defending the front. Her intelligence suggested they expected no attack for at least another month. They were about to be surprised. "All ships," she said calmly. "Begin final approach. Execute Pattern 7. Pattern 7. The word sent a chill through Concord communications officers who intercepted the message. They did not know what Pattern 7 was. They would soon learn. Grand Marshal Keth received the alert 3 hours before the human fleet arrived. His officers reported an incoming force from an unexpected direction. The humans were not attacking their nearest enemy position. They were striking directly at the Valorian front, 300 light-years from Earth. "Madness," Keth muttered. "They leave their homes undefended to attack our strongest position." But his confidence wavered. No species had ever done this before. The Concord's strategic models could not predict it. It made no logical sense. Perhaps that was the point. The battle began at dawn, Valorian Standard Time. 800 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a scattered formation that looked almost random. Concord defense platforms opened fire immediately, their weapons locking onto the nearest targets. But the humans did not fight like a fleet. They fought like 800 individual ships, each one making its own decisions, adapting to the battle in real time. When one ship was targeted, another would dart in front of it. When a platform focused its weapons on a group, that group would scatter and reform somewhere else. Keth watched in growing frustration. His own fleet followed strict protocols, each ship following orders from the command chain. Changes required authorization. Adaptations took time. The humans had no chain. They had chaos. But it was controlled chaos. Somehow, impossibly, it worked. Lieutenant Nario flew her fighter through the hell of battle. Explosions bloomed around her. Debris scattered across her flight path. Her targeting computers screamed warnings, but she ignored them. She trusted her instincts more than machines. Her squadron had been assigned a suicide mission. At least, that was what the Concord would call it. They were ordered to fly directly into the heart of the enemy formation, drawing fire while the heavier ships positioned themselves. No rational species would accept those odds. The casualties would be catastrophic. Any commander who ordered such a mission would be court-martialed in Concord space. But humans were not rational. They were determined. And they understood something that Concord had forgotten in their millennia of easy victories. Sometimes victory required sacrifice. Nari pushed her ship faster. Around her, her squadron followed. They screamed into the enemy formation like arrows aimed at a giant's heart. The Concord ships turned to face them, weapons charged. For a moment, it looked like the entire squadron would be wiped out in seconds. Then the human battleships opened fire. While the Concord focused on the fighters, Admiral Una had positioned her heavy ships in a perfect firing line. The enemy's defensive formation had a gap created by Nari's suicide. The first volley tore through the Concord's ranks. Ships that had survived centuries of warfare exploded in heartbeats. Stations that had never been threatened crumbled into debris. Keth screamed orders, but his chain of command was too slow. By the time his captains received instructions, the situation had already changed. The humans adapted. His forces could not. Commander Minho Beak led the special operations teams. While the main battle raged, small human vessels slipped through the chaos and attached themselves to key Concord stations. Teams of soldiers, each one trained for years in zero-gravity combat, breached airlocks and fought their way through corridors. Their mission was not to kill. It was to disable, destroy the sensors, cut the communications, blind the enemy, and let the main fleet tear them apart. It worked. Within 2 hours, the Valorian front's defensive network was in ruins. Within 4 hours, half of Keth's fleet was destroyed or disabled. Within 6 hours, human marines were storming his command station. Keth stood alone on his bridge, surrounded by dead screens and silent stations. His officers had fled or been captured. His flagship drifted powerless in the void. When the humans arrived, he expected brutality. His species had not been gentle with conquered enemies. Surely the humans would not be gentle with him. Instead, a young soldier, barely more than a child by Valorian standards, offered him water and medical attention. "You are Grand Marshal Keth," she said. Her Korean was accented but clear through the translator. "You are now a prisoner of the United Human Forces. You will be treated according to the laws of war." Keth stared at her. "Why? After what we threatened? After what we planned to do to your people?" The soldier shrugged. "We are human," she said simply. "This is how we do things." He did not understand. He had lived for 600 years and fought in a dozen wars. He did not understand these strange, impossible, terrifying creatures. Admiral Yuna accepted Keth's surrender on the bridge of the horizon. The battle was over. The Valorian front, 8,000 years old, unconquered, impenetrable, had fallen in less than 8 hours. She allowed Keth to send one final message to the Concord Council before he was taken away. He sat before the camera, his armor scorched, his pride shattered. When he spoke, his voice was hollow.
"Oh."
To the Concord Council, "The Valorian front has fallen. Our fleet is destroyed. The humans have won." He paused, struggling to find words. "I have fought many species. I have crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. I understand war." He looked directly into the camera. "I do not understand this. These creatures, they do not fight like a civilization. They fight like they have nothing to lose. Every single one of them, from the admiral to the lowest soldier, they all make decisions. They all adapt. They all attack without hesitation." His voice dropped to a whisper. "We thought we knew war. We were wrong. The humans have been fighting each other for their entire existence. War is in their blood. It is in their bones. We cannot predict them because they do not follow rules. They make their own." He took a shaky breath. "Do not send reinforcements. Do not attempt to avenge us. Make peace. Make peace now while they are still willing to accept it. Because if you push them further, you could not finish." The recording ended. Across the galaxy, Concord leaders watched the message in silence. For the first time in 10,000 years, they knew fear, and the war had only just begun. 3 months had passed since the war began. In that time, everything the Concord believed about the galaxy had been shattered. Human fleets moved through Concord space like ghosts. They struck without warning, destroyed military targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They never occupied worlds. They never attacked civilians. They simply broke the Concord's ability to fight and moved on. The economy of 1,000 worlds collapsed. Trade routes that had operated for millennia fell silent. Species that had not known fear in generations hid in their homes and watched the stars with terrified eyes. And still the humans came. Elder, boss, stood before the Concord Council for the last time. His proud posture was gone. His ancient eyes were hollow. He had lived for 2,000 years, and in 3 months he had aged more than in the previous 10 centuries. We have no choice, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. We must surrender, council chamber erupted. Representatives from a dozen species shouted and argued. Some demanded more war. Others had already begun secret negotiations with humanity. One delegate simply wept. Voss raised his hand for silence. It took longer than it should have. I have reviewed the military assessments, he continued. Every counterattack has failed. Our fleets cannot match their speed. Our tactics cannot adapt to their chaos. Our weapons cannot penetrate their shields. Right. He closed his eyes. And they have not yet used their full force. The fleet they showed us in their broadcast, we have seen perhaps a third of it in combat. They are holding back. Why? Someone asked. Why hold back if they can destroy us? Voss opened his eyes. Because they are waiting to see what we will do. They are giving us a chance to surrender before they truly unleash themselves. He had spent sleepless nights studying human history. He had read about their world wars. He had seen the images of their mushroom clouds. He had learned the numbers millions dead in single conflicts, civilizations burned to ash, entire regions rendered uninhabitable, and those were just the wars they fought among themselves. Contact the humans, Voss said. Offer unconditional surrender. The message reached Earth within hours. President Somi-Han read it 3 times before responding. Tell them we will meet at Nova Station, she said, where this began. Admiral Una Park returned to the same chamber where the peace talks had collapsed 3 months ago. The same gray walls? The same cold air. But everything else had changed. This time, there were no guards escorting her. This time, she did not stand on the lower platform. This time, the Concord delegates looked at her with fear instead of contempt. Elder Voss sat alone at the center of the half-circle. The other delegates kept their distance from him, as if his failure might be contagious. Admiral Park, he said. His voice cracked. We are prepared to discuss terms. Una said nothing. She simply waited. Voss cleared his throat. The Concord offers full membership to humanity. Voting rights. Equal representation. We will pay reparations for the damage we threatened and for the colonies we blockaded. We will share all technology. We will issue a formal apology to your species. Still, Una waited. We will. Voss swallowed. We will dissolve the Concord itself if you demand it. Humanity can rebuild galactic civilization however you see fit. You have one. We accept that. Admiral Una looked at the broken elder, at the terrified delegates, at the empty seats where proud species had once sat in judgment of humanity. She thought about everything the Concord had done, the threats, the ultimatum, the attempt to enslave her entire species. Part of Hearth, old part, the angry part wanted revenge. Then she thought about her grandmother, who had survived the Tokyo earthquake of 2089 and spent the rest of her life building shelters for others. She thought about her brother, who had chosen medicine over military service because he believed in healing more than hurting. She thought about all the humans throughout history who had chosen to be better than their circumstances demanded. Stand by for President Han, she said quietly. The main screen flickered to life. Somi-Han appeared, looking older than she had 3 months ago. Leading a species through war had cost her. But her eyes were still clear. Her voice was still steady. Elder Voss, she said. We have received your offer of surrender. Voss bowed his head. Name your terms. We will accept them. Somi was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of billions. We could destroy you, she said. We have the power. We could enslave your worlds. We could make you fear humanity for 1,000 generations. We could do to you what you plan to do to us. She paused. Our ancestors did such things to each other. We remember, Voss trembled. But we also remember choosing to be better. Somi straightened her shoulders. We will accept your surrender not as conquerors, but as equals who have finally earned your respect. We do not want your fear. We do not want your servitude. We want to build something new. Something better. She looked directly at Voss. We will help rebuild what we have destroyed. We will share our technology freely. We will work alongside you, not above you. Not because we are weak, Know now that we are not weak, but because this is the species we have chosen to be." The chamber was absolutely silent. "He threatened us with extinction," Somi continued. "We responded with war. Now we offer you peace. Real peace. Based on mutual respect and shared purpose. We have proven what we can do. Now we choose what we will do. And we choose mercy." Elder Voss stared at the screen. His ancient mind could not comprehend it. Any other species in history, including his own, would have demanded blood. They would have taken everything. They would have made the Concord pay for generations. But humans were not any other species. "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking. "After everything we did? After everything we threatened? Why would you show us mercy?" Somi smiled sadly. "Because we know what happens to species that choose revenge over reconciliation. We have tried that path many times. It always leads to more suffering, more war, more death. We are tired of that story. We want to write a new one." She stood taller. "We are human. We are capable of terrible things. You have seen that now. But we are also capable of this, of choosing peace when war would be easier, offering healing when punishment would be satisfying. This is who we want to be. This is who we will be." The transmission ended. 1 year later, Captain Nario stood in the observation deck of Earth's new orbital station and watched shuttles arrive from across the galaxy. Alien diplomats, scientists, and ambassadors came to attend the first truly equal galactic summit. Humanity sat at the head of the table now, not because they had conquered the galaxy, but because they had chosen not to. That choice had earned them something that force never could: genuine respect. Delegate Nira found Admiral Yuna in a quiet corner, watching the proceedings with a faint smile. "I have studied your species for decades," Nira said. "I thought I understood you, but I still do not understand this. You could have had everything: power, control, an empire spanning the stars. Why give it up?" Yuna considered the question. Through the window, she could see Earth below, blue and beautiful, covered in the scars of ancient wars and the lights of modern cities. "We already have everything that matters," she said finally. "We have proven what we are, that we can match any species in the galaxy when pushed. But proving it was never the goal." She turned to face Nira. "We did not fight this war to become rulers. We fought it so we could choose who we become. And we choose to be the species that offers a hand instead of a fist, that builds instead of destroys, that leads through example instead of fear." Nira was quiet for a moment. "The other species fear you more now than they did after your declaration of war. You know that, right?" Yuna nodded. "I know. Why?" "You showed them mercy." Yuna smiled. But there was something ancient in her eyes, something that remembered ice ages and plagues and wars that burned entire continents. Because mercy requires strength. Anyone can be cruel when they have power. Anyone can take revenge when they have the chance. But to have the power to destroy your enemies and choose forgiveness instead— She shook her head. "That is terrifying. That is something they cannot predict or control or understand." She looked out at the stars. "They fear us because they know we could become monsters at any moment. They fear us more because they see we choose not to. And that choice made freely, every single day, is more frightening than any weapon." Below them, the summit began. Humans and aliens sat together, equals for the first time in galactic history. Old grudges faded. New alliances formed. A future that had seemed impossible 3 months ago began to take shape. Humanity had come to the stars seeking friends. They had found enemies instead. They had won a war they never wanted. And in their victory, they had chosen to be better than their history, better than their nature, better than anyone expected. That was the most human thing of all. And somewhere, in the silence between stars, the galaxy watched and wondered what these strange, impossible, beautiful creatures would do next. It was afraid to find out. It was also excited because if humans could choose peace over war, mercy over revenge, hope over fear, maybe, just maybe, the rest of the galaxy could learn to do the same. That was humanity's final gift to the stars. Not conquest. Not fear, but possibility. The possibility of becoming something better. Together.